Hello, and welcome to my series, Surviving the Larapinta. This is part 10, East or West? One of the most common questions hikers ask before tackling the Larapinta Trail is simple. Which way should I go? Do I start in Alice Springs and head west? Or do I begin at Redbank Gorge under Mount Sonder and walk back east? The truth is, the trail feels very different depending on which direction you choose. Each option has its pros and cons, and every hiker who's walked it has an opinion. Today, we'll explore both directions, so you can decide which path is right for you. Most hikers start in Alice Springs and head west. To most, this direction feels natural. The trail begins right on the edge of town, with access to supplies, transport, and accommodation. You set off gradually moving deeper into the West MacDonnell Ranges, and Mount Sonder as your grand finale, the iconic endpoint of the trail. The terrain builds slowly, the views get bigger, and the sense of isolation grows. The first sections heading west are moderate. You ease into the hike with Simpson's Gap, Stanley Chasm, then Ellery Creek, before building into tougher climbs. This gives your legs time to adjust, and your body time to settle into trail life. The catch? By the time you reach Mount Sonder at the far end, you've been walking about 200 kilometres for 2 to 3 weeks. Many hikers admit that they're so exhausted by that final climb that they don't enjoy it and are too tired to appreciate the sunrise. We started at Redbank Gorge, and that afternoon it was torrential rain. A group arrived, planning to climb Mount Sonder the next morning before their transport arrived. However, it was also torrentially raining the next morning, a complete fog out, and they missed out on section 12. Because they had the transport arranged, they couldn't stay an extra day. We delayed an extra day at Redbank to be able to do Mount Sonder, forfeiting a rest day at some other point along the trail. As we were walking back to Alice, we didn't have transport booked, so even if we did take an extra few days, it didn't matter if we arrived a day or two late. We had many days before our flights as we planned to hire a van and do a road trip around the Northern Territory to visit Uluru, Kings Canyon and the Olgas. So if you don't have buffer days heading west and you're delayed on the trail, you might miss section 12, or get stuck at Redbank Gorge. Walking west to east means starting at Redbank Gorge, tackling Mount Sonder on day 1, and then making your way back towards Alice Springs. The biggest advantage is that you hit the hardest climb first, with fresh legs, fresh enthusiasm, and maximum energy. Watching the sunrise or sunset over the desert on day 1 sets the tone for the whole walk. The downsides? After Sonder, the trail can feel like it's gradually winding down, and psychologically, some find it anticlimactic. Without Sonder as a finale, some feel the trail loses its crescendo. We only felt that way for sections 1 and 2, as they are not as scenic and they feel like at that point the best part is over and you're just walking back to Alice. You move from vast, dramatic landscapes towards gentler country and finish closer to town, comforts and cold drinks. We really enjoyed that we finished the trail by walking into a pub for a beer and a steak. The Larapinta Trail isn't symmetrical. East to west, you warm up gradually and face the hardest, most technical sections towards the end. Rocky ridges, steep climbs, and long exposed days. West to east, the hardest terrain comes first. You tackle Sonder, Razorback Ridge, and the steep sections while your legs are fresh. The second half of the trail feels easier. Still long, still challenging, but less punishing than those early ridges. So it's a question of timing your strength. Do you want an easier start and the harder finish, or the harder start with the gradual wind down? We did meet several groups of hikers at Jay Creek who smashed out sections 1 and 2 in 2 days, rather than the 2 days per section that was recommended. And despite the relatively flat terrain, they were broken. They pushed too hard, they got blisters that got infected, and they suffered from extreme fatigue and heat exhaustion. And that ended their trail before they'd even started it. Direction isn't just about terrain, it's about mindset. East to west, you're walking towards something. Each step brings you closer to Sonder, the symbolic finish line. There's a sense of building, anticipation. But it can also mean pressure. You've been imagining that final sunrise for weeks, and when you get there, you may be too tired to enjoy it. You might have been delayed on the trail, and not even have time to complete Mount Sonder in section 12. West to east, you start with the big prize. Sonder is ticked off immediately, a memory that powers you through the rest of your journey. Each day brings you closer to Alice Springs, a city, a bed and a shower. Logistics and support also factor in. Starting in Alice Springs is easy. You buy the supplies, you sleep in a hotel, and you simply walk to the trailhead. Food drops and commercial services are geared towards east to west walkers. Resupply boxes are positioned, assuming you're heading west. The direction you take will affect the number of days' food you have to carry, and if you are doing a climb with a full or almost empty food bag. We climbed Brinkley's Bluff the steeper way, heading east, but with only one night and morning's worth of food. We had our resupply the next day at Stanley Chasm. Those heading east have to do that climb after just resupplying. It's more gradual, but you're carrying a lot more. And you'll also be doing it during the heat of the day, because most people stay at Stanley Chasm to have the famous pancake breakfast. Starting at Redbank requires arranging transport out west, and this isn't cheap. You have to hire a car, book a transfer, and rely on tour operators. Starting at Alice, you have to pre-arrange transport back once you arrive at Redbank Gorge. So either way, you still have to pay for transport in one of the directions. Unless you hitchhike back to Alice from Redbank. But having to pre-arrange transport to arrive at Redbank Gorge at the end of your trek adds pressure. You can't add a day here or there. Now, it is possible to call and rearrange a transport on the trail if you're running late, but there isn't a guarantee of availability, and phone reception is sketchy. You could end up stuck at Redbank if you arrive late and miss your transport. You might have to wait a day or two. Do you have supplies to be able to do that? I think while West has its rewards, it does come with more logistical headaches and time pressures. Another consideration is the amount of other hikers on the trail. Now, the peak season is June, July, so we decided to start the last week of May, heading towards Alice. Now, we hardly saw anyone on the trail, maybe 3 or 4 other people per day, and we pretty much had the high camps to ourselves. And there was maybe one other group at best at the trailhead shelters. This lasted until we hit section 4-5 junction, where there were quite a lot of people. But even then, we didn't start to see multiple groups on trail or have more than 1 or 2 other groups at the trailhead shelter camps until we reached Jay Creek. We also heard a lot of horror stories that later in the season, especially at high camps, there was a lot of human waste around, and it really reduced enjoyment of those camps. We didn't have this problem at all because we started early in the season and we started from the least popular direction. So which way you choose shapes your entire experience of the trail. If this is your first Larapinta or your first long desert hike, east to west is usually the safer, more forgiving choice. If you prefer solitude, leave the end of May and walk east. This direction suits hikers who are more experienced and prefer solitude over social camps. Or if you're returning for a second go, chasing quiet camps and a personal challenge, west to east, can be incredibly rewarding. There's no wrong direction, only the direction that fits you. Either way, the Larapinta will test you, reward you, and leave you changed. Just remember, whichever direction you walk, it's not about the way you start or finish. It's about everything you discover in between.